There are 7 classic albums which perfectly represent the 7 deadly sins, starting with Lust. Lust is defined as having a strong sexual desire, and an album that perfectly matches this definition is My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy by Kanye West. Dark Fantasy was made after the infamous Taylor Swift scandal at the VMAs.
I'm really happy for you. I'm gonna let you finish. But Beyonce had one of the best videos of all time.
Before the incident on stage, Ye was seen on the red carpet with what he would later say was 2 addictions: alcohol and women.
It's a pretty bugged out story. I literally left America. I stopped doing music altogether. And then when I came back to the States, I moved to Hawaii and lived there.
Wow.
Lived there for like 6 months and just worked on music again.
During these sessions, Ye would put on adult films for everyone to see. He kept pictures of naked women on his laptop that he'd show to whoever was around him.
That's a unicorn. That's a naked girl walking down the street with wings. That was like Kate Moss with like nothing but whatever you wear on your head on wedding day. So I wanted to show y'all that, to show you I have thousands of these photographs, and that's all I do while I work on music in the studio. I just look at all these photographs, look at movies, I look at the visuals, and I'll turn the track up, or it just be me and RZA in the studio, me and Pete Rock.
Nicki Minaj once spoke on Kanye giving her life-changing advice in one of these sessions without even looking at her. He was fixated on the naked girls on his screen. Naturally, the lyrics would reflect the inspiration. On Dark Fantasy, Ye raps about his escapades with adult film stars and even fantasizes about marrying one of them. When you think about it, his fantasies kind of came true.
With Kanye too, it was so fluid. He was buying some sneakers from Marc Jacobs in New York. It was like a different time. We stayed on the phone for a couple of hours. You know, it was full on. We covered everything from music to, you know, and art in between, and fashion and everything. So it was kind of crazy.
He also talked about how his lustful mindset has led him down a destructive path. He would do anything to fulfill his fantasies, which quickly turned into nightmares. This man was so deep into it, he even had Chris Rock do a soliloquy about pussy at the end of Blame Game.
Oh my God. Now a neighborhood nigga like me ain't supposed to be getting no pussy like this. God damn. Who taught you how to get sexy for a nigga?
Easy taught me.
The song Hell of a Life is primarily about jerking off to internet videos and being with the movie girl. And he has everything so twisted that he tries to equate these experiences to true love. On Runaway, he finally realizes how his lustful nature has deeply affected his relationship. But it isn't really an apology, more of an acceptance. Instead of apologizing and trying to change, he suggests his girl runs away as fast as she possibly can. And even though lust has flipped his life upside down, he isn't willing to let go of his poison. Recently, it was announced that Ye would be venturing into the adult film world. It's sad to see that his fight with this addiction is far from over, and he might need some serious help. But he might have too much pride to seek help, as he doesn't seem to even listen to his team and inner circle. Speaking of pride, this brings us to the next deadly sin, which is known to be the worst out of all of them. And the album that best matches the description of pride is Damn by Kendrick Lamar. We've all heard the phrase, pride comes before the fall. Damn opens up with the life or death question. Is it wickedness or is it weakness? You decide. Are you going to live or die? Then Kendrick gets killed by a random blonde lady on the street. I want you to think of this intro as the equivalent of Morpheus asking you to choose between the red or blue pill. Kendrick's death is due to him choosing wickedness, which means he let his pride take over. Proverbs chapter 11 verse 12 says, "When pride comes, then comes disgrace, but with humility comes wisdom." That's why we have the song Humble on the track list. At face value, Humble is K-Dot talking his shit, cementing his dominance over his competition, but the song serves as a reminder to him to stay humble. During the verses, he's stunting hard, but then he comes to his senses and he reminds himself to set his ass down. It's the yin and yang constantly in battle with each other.
One of my favorite words is actually contradiction. The symbolism basically of contradiction. When you listen to the actual lyrics and you see the visuals behind it, you know, they fight against each other, you know, and that's what makes it unique to me.
Track 2 on the project is DNA, a song in which Kendrick celebrates his heritage. But this is merely a mask for Kendrick's arrogance. He's still rapping from his ego. He still hasn't shed his pride, still acting morally superior to others, which he always gets criticized for.
this aggression and this attitude, you know, DNA, and exposing who I really am.
The song Pride is intentionally in the middle of the album. It's the heartbeat of the story. Love is gonna get you killed, but pride will be the death of you. On this record, he contemplates what's more important between material gains or spiritual integrity. He explains why he doesn't trust people and how the world has forced him to develop some evil traits. It's important to notice he still hasn't fully taken accountability for himself and his actions as a man. He's still pointing fingers and shifting blame at this point. But in the second verse, he imagines what a perfect world would be like. An ideal world where he doesn't shift blame away from himself. An ideal world where pride hasn't poisoned human relationships and religion. Another staple on the project is the song Feel. Kendrick's paranoia is through the roof on Feel, and it's all because of his wickedness. This is what they mean when they say pride will be the death of you. He is dying inside and only has himself to blame. He raps about being isolated by his success, but more than anything, he's suffering because of his self-centered way of life. He's even gotten to the point where he's doubting his connection with his family and friends. Seeing as we were just speaking about Kendrick's family and friends, I think it's fitting we get into another album he was heavily involved in, which represents the next deadly sin. Control by SZA. I chose Control to represent envy because on this album, SZA finds herself comparing her life and looks to other women a lot. Envy is described as a feeling of resentful longing aroused by someone else's possessions, qualities, and luck. SZA struggles with this a lot throughout this album. Her raw and unfiltered lyrics sort of feel like you were reading her journal. She's brutally honest to the point you can't help but feel sorry for her. She doesn't know what she wants, lacks self-esteem. Right out the gate on the intro, she sings about her love interest leaving her alone for prettier women. The envy sticks out like a sore thumb.
Because, you know, we don't see the world as it is, we see it as we are. So I felt fat, I felt ugly, I felt undeserving. So I would look for things and probably dig in places that there weren't any things to be, to be dug.
On Drew Barrymore, SZA sings, "You came with your new friend and her mom jeans and her new Vans. She's perfect and I hate it." She questions if she's pretty enough to be desired. Seeing somebody you want with someone else who's nothing like you can make one question themselves. That's exactly what SZA does. Control is a beautiful record about SZA navigating her 20s, trying to make something of herself while figuring out relationships and learning to love herself. But comparison really is the thief of joy. So she finds herself overlooking her special qualities and instead is focusing on everything she isn't. She isn't ladylike. She isn't as attractive as she'd like to be. She doesn't have a big ass. She doesn't think she'd be the kind of girl a man would want to take home and introduce to his family. These feelings of inadequacy are especially prevalent on songs like Supermodel, Normal Girl, Drew Barrymore, The Weeknd, and Garden.
My girl SZA is here.
The side chick zigzag zigala. That's her name.
Oh my God, it's so crazy. First of all,
Into the mic,
I know
SZA,
exactly what
into
song
the
you're
mic.
talking about.
There's a couple of them. The whole album?
No, just one.
A lot of the album.
The premise of the song The Weeknd is her being the side chick to a man instead of the main girl. She has him for the weekend and is moving like she prefers it that way. However, this isn't true. This is merely a coping mechanism to make herself feel better about the situation.
What I'm actually saying in the song is my man is your man. We all share the same dude, saying that I'm aware, I don't care. I'm not trying to I don't need to be his girl.
The truth is she wants to be this guy's main girl, but that's not possible. But she's so desperate to keep him in her life that she'll settle for being the girl he only sees on the weekend. On Garden, she hides who she really is, presenting her perfect self to this person because she's afraid he would never love her for who she really is. Wrath. The fourth deadly sin is wrath. Wrath is defined as extreme anger, and I feel the album that best matches this is Rodeo by Travis Scott. Anger can make people do some regrettable things, but when that energy is channeled properly, it can lead to positive life-changing results. This is exactly what Travis did with his debut.
We were just pissed off. We was just coming from a point of just not being understood. And when you finally can prove yourself wrong, this is the joint you want to play. When it's told you, motherfucker.
Before Rodeo, Travis was angered by his positioning in the game. He felt people didn't understand him. He was told his ideas were too grand for his budgets. He'd get frustrated during his shows if things didn't align with his creative vision. And on top of that, he was scrutinized for his behavior. His undying love and passion for the music at times would be mistaken for arrogance.
No station should have their cameraman on stage when an artist is performing.
Can I ask why not Travis Scott?
Because, what is that?
You realize they have a job to do as well, right?
But that's what a press pit is for. I was already pissed about them not allowing me to have a screen on stage when I perform. Instead of that, I get their press guys, their camera guys to be my backdrop for my show. That's not fair to any artist.
So he decided to channel the anger into making the best album he possibly could. He rented out a mansion with his A&R Sycamore. They brought out a bunch of producers and collaborators to contribute to the album.
Somebody's like, yo, we're gonna fly you to LA and we're gonna put you up in Beverly Hills in Seal's producer's house at the top of the hills, and it's gonna be like you, Metro.
Sunny Digital, first from FKI, Wonder Girl, Southside, TM88, Alan Ritter, all living in the same house.
For 3 to 4 months, they lived like madmen, working day and night, trying to match the energy they had to the sounds they were making.
The house was just wild, bro. Just extra wild, bro. Niggas did whatever they had to do to get the right type of music done.
Travis is intense. It's just like super intense. It's 24/7. Because if he's asleep, the producers are awake. And they want to tweak up the songs that he's already done. So they need you there. Like there's like 3 days where I was like, I have to go to bed. I can't do this anymore. Like I don't have it in me. I just can't. They had like 5 engineers. And most of the engineers were like.
Man, if I tell you the real story behind why Antidote and Impossible like came about, it would just be a limb blast. But you know, I freestyled the whole shit.
Really?
Yeah, it was like one take.
No,
Yeah.
Antidote is one take?
Yeah.
He woke up like late, and then I think he recorded a song called Impossible off of Rodeo. And then a beat played, he played a Wonder Girl beat, and he started beating on the table. Don't you open up that window. Ooh, don't you let out the antidote. Ooh, and he just does that for like, and you know, it's like an open mic, there's no booth.
Yeah.
So he just does that for like 4 minutes.
They had some unconventional ways of making beats and recording the songs, which contributed to the album's signature sounds.
We like that sound. We like the distorted sound. So now we're going back and we're like trying to figure out how to get that like broken sound that we got from like FL and like the weird unorthodox ways that they were making stuff hit. The way that it was wrong was right.
On the intro, Travis addresses his drive and hunger. From the onset, you can tell he isn't here to make friends, and he knows he's gonna ruffle a few feathers. But who cares? He wants to take over. This album is perfect for the kids who want to rage against the system. For anyone that is overlooked, anyone who has something to prove to the world. Use that anger to push you further. Like the Flame said, let your ambition carry you.
That's the shit that get me going. Not being accepted is like my whole driver. I know people might think I'm crazy, it might seem like I'm spasmatic, but I knew like the end game for it all was to like, you know, persistence, key, focus. You know, you gotta be the first one up, you gotta be the last one asleep. No matter how tired you are, you gotta get on that stage and give it 100%.
But what happens when ambition turns into greed? Greed is the next deadly sin, which is defined as an intense and selfish desire for wealth and power. A classic album which best represents greed is Biggie's Life After Death. Not necessarily the subject matter, but more so the circumstances surrounding it. I'm using Biggie's album for this deadly sin not because of the artist himself, but the man who signed Biggie, P. Diddy. Diddy's known for robbing his artists, and Biggie unfortunately was not an exception. Back in the 90s, artists were more clueless than today's artists about publishing and masters. Biggie, coming from an impoverished neighborhood, was just happy to be able to get out of there and feed his family.
He took me out of a dangerous game, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I was selling real hard, you know? When I got the record deal, all that got cut short. So it's like he Jesus to me, you know what I'm saying? Because he just saved me. And it's real, and I go all out.
Nah, I ain't saying none of that. I'm not Jesus.
To
Jesus.
Me, I look at him like, I say Jesus.
So when Puff offered him $200K for his publishing, he took it, not knowing he was finessing himself out of millions of dollars.
The management that he had at the time, Mark Pitts and Wayne Barrows, who were Puff friends, basically talked him into selling his publishing to Puff.
Not too long after he dropped his debut album Ready to Die, he learned about his publishing and realized how big of a mistake he had made. He felt betrayed by Puff, who had been fronting like a brother. Biggie went to Puff to try to get his publishing back, and obviously Puffy didn't give it to him. But he promised they would revisit this topic at a later date. Because of this, he decided to stay cool with him in the hopes of eventually getting it back. But he couldn't trust him any longer. From then on, Big wouldn't ever be in studio sessions with Puff. And whenever Puff would find out where Biggie was and he showed up, he wouldn't record anything. Big also had a bunch of artists and groups of his own that he'd write for. But he wouldn't tell anybody he was writing these songs, just so Puff wouldn't take all their money. Furthermore, Before Life After Death dropped, he was about to close on a $63 million deal with Capitol Records for himself and his groups. He was finally about to part ways with Diddy. The album Life After Death was completed and ready for release, and Biggie was scheduled to go to London for a press tour. However, Puff made him go to LA and stay there longer to attend a party that he was getting paid to be at. This is Puff getting paid, by the way, not Biggie.
Diddy called Sean P. Diddy early Saturday morning saying he's not going to London. Call Arista, cancel it. You go. You represent it. You go. He's not going.
He literally cursed you out about that whole London trip. That whatever you gotta do for it not to happen, you better do it.
Puff even persuaded Biggie's friend to make sure Big shows up to that party, even after all the multiple death threats they received.
When Biggie was in LA, was he getting death threats?
We were getting threats all along, all around. The threats was continuous. The threats was before we left to go to LA.
You know, there was a hit out on Biggie. I get on the phone and I call this girl and I tell her to call Gene, and I know Gene is reputable, you know, Big Gene, and he gonna get the word out there. So I told, I just called and said, yo, tell him to vest up. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that he know what time it is. You know what I mean? No whole bunch to say, tell him to vest up. Don't go to Cali, nigga, it's on,
I got a phone call from Unique, and Unique from Mecca Audio say, yo, vest up. Those guys is coming to get y'all. So I call him, I say, Puff. He comes to the top of the staircase. And I say, yo, Puff, I got some intel. The guys are coming to kill us tonight at the museum party. He said, Gene, I don't want to hear that shit. He said, you ain't got to go if you don't want to go.
What makes matters worse is Puff was adamant on not paying for any more security, which his partner and his bodyguard were pleading for. He wanted to move around LA and prove he's untouchable.
We're on a West Coast where we're surrounded by enemies who told us not to be here. We might have overstepped our boundaries based on all the warnings, based on Puff's security, Gene Deal, who was there to secure Puff. The budget for LA ended, and there was a great need for security that Saturday night, and he was out without that security.
We get out, Puff pull out first. We pull out behind him. He blow past the light. We stopped at the light, and before you know it, a car just rolled up.
Tone, who was behind me, said, somebody in the car pointing a gun at Big and them.
Unfortunately, Biggie passed on during that LA trip.
After Big got killed, they was probably looking for more bad boy artists. I actually was trapped in a hotel. 70 or so bloods in the hallway. I couldn't even leave my room. I couldn't even leave the room till Gene Dill, the officer had to come get me.
Puff's greed and arrogance led to Biggie dying, but I don't think he was complaining much. He made so much more money with Biggie dead than him being alive. He claimed Biggie wanted to be in LA and they never received any threats.
We did not receive any type of warnings beforehand from the party, or they were saying like we had received threats. We didn't receive threats. We didn't feel any type of tension.
I cried the day Biggie died. And I was in LA and Biggie was like, yo, Murray, I got shows in London. Do you think I should stay here or leave? I said, Big, you know they do not like you out here. Leave.
What's sad about this whole story is Puff made it seem like him and Biggie were the best of friends when that was far from true. He paraded this fake friendship around for sympathy and to make more money.
Biggie just wasn't an artist to me, he was my friend, he was one of my best friends.
I'm very close with God, and through our relationship, I was trying to show him how God is his friend.
The way Sean says they were best friends after he was dead, nah, I didn't see that during the time we were working with him. I think there might have been a little bit of a hole or a gap when it came time to people being friends.
Did Biggie at all feel that his life was in danger? He never told me, I can only speak, he never told me he felt that his life was in danger.
I think somebody's trying to kill me. I'll be waking up paranoid. I'll be really scared. I'll just be paro.
The greed displayed by Puff in this last story is scary, and it could have fallen under gluttony, which is the next deadly sin. But for this one, I decided to take a little left turn and highlight a classic by the legend MF Doom. Food falls under gluttony because it's an album filled with lyrics about food. The titles of the songs are either a food or a drink. But it's not only about food lyrics and witty punchlines. He tells you about life using food references. The album opens up with the lines, "Here you'll find food for your body, as well as comfort for your troubled mind. This should let you know what you're in for." Life lessons from Doom coupled with genius food metaphors. The first verse on the album, he raps about how a diet can lead to strokes, heart attacks, and heart diseases. Also how eating too much fried food can lead to high blood pressure. However, this is sort of like a double entendre about food in the rap scene. The song is called Beef Rap, so these bars are also him warning rappers to stop involving themselves with beef. Metaphors and double meanings like this continue throughout the album. This album is so good, if any of you guys haven't heard it, I'd urge you to check it out and listen to it with an open mind. The Lost Deadly Sin, Sloth. It's defined as a reluctance to work or make an effort, also known as laziness. There isn't a more fitting album to represent this sin than Ye by Kanye West. Before this album, Kanye was notorious for working overtime on his projects, but maybe because of all that he was going through at the time, he didn't have it in him to sit and focus. Ye consists of 7 songs and was a part of a rollout of other 7-song albums. He was producing every song on all of these albums, so he already was stretched out too thin. A few weeks before this album's release date, he did TMZ and went on his infamous Slavery Was a Choice rant.
When you hear about slavery for 400 years, that sounds like a choice. I had plastic surgery because I was trying to look good for y'all. I got liposuction. When I left the hospital, how many pills you think I was given? 7!
This left the internet up in flames and drove him over the edge. It seemed like he was rampant, and on top of that, his wife was worried he had ruined everything for them by making these comments. This probably derailed the music a little bit.
I just want you to consider all the people who just might be terribly, just torn apart and hurt.
So a week before the album was meant to drop, he scrapped most of the songs. The ones he did keep, he reworked, changing them completely.
Yeah, I had heard you had some songs done for this project, and then you scrapped them or you moved them aside and put other songs ahead of it. Is that true?
Yeah, I redid the whole album after TMZ.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Why?
Just energy. I know exactly what to do with this, and we put it in there.
Everything was so last minute that Mike Dean was still receiving vocals and mixing songs while in the car on the way to the listening party. Even the album cover was shot and edited in the car. There wasn't a lot of thought and effort put into making a quality body of work.
He was headed to the release party in his car, recording new lines on his iPhone, sent it to me. Oh, add this into the song, add this to this song.
He had an album that was almost ready and sabotaged himself last minute. Ye really was on some bullshit during this time. For example, one of the 7-track albums he produced was with Nas. Everything was rushed and super last minute for this album as well. Nas had to record songs in the car right before the album release party. Some of the beats were so lazy with very minimal work done on them. The mixes were horrible, like some of the mixes on Ye. Another person who had a 7-track album produced by Ye was Tiana Taylor. She too had a lot of complaints.
Okay, so imagine 7 songs and then each song is like 1 minute and 30 seconds. Yeah, that's an issue for me. I wrote from my heart, so it was like when certain verses that meant a lot to me was being cut out and I didn't know it was cut out until the album dropped, I was tight. So it's like now I got a 7-song album that only equals out to 22 minutes.
It's weird because Ye is one of my favorite Kanye albums because of 4 songs: Ghost Town, Violent Crimes, I Thought About Killing You, and No Mistakes. But a lot of people were disappointed by this album. I don't blame them. There was no cohesion at all and zero focus.